good morning to you. Listen, if you don't mind, we'll get onto your plans in a second, but I really need to ask you, as a prominent parliamentarian, leader of the Lib Dems, about this monumental data leak on Afghans and the subsequent super-injunction that covered it all up. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's appalling. The way that the last government worked with the Americans to bring our troops and people out of Kabul was a disaster. The way they've looked after people who fought side by side and helped our troops has really been a scandal. And this leak, this huge mistake, put lives at risk. So we understand why there was the super-injunction in the first place. The question, which is troubling people, is was it on for too long? Now, the judges that was the best person to test that, but I'm afraid no one in the government back then is covered in glory. It's really quite shameful.
I think the question for a lot of people, Ed Davey, is why governments would ever pursue a super-injunction at all. Should they ever be allowed? Is there ever a good reason for them?
Well, they should be only used in the most extreme of cases. As I understand it, I'm not privy to all the details. We were looking at the lives of Afghans and their families who had helped our troops. So because of this data leak, their security and safety was put in danger. So that may well have given a rationale for a super injunction for a short period. The question is, was it needed for this length of period? And I have to say, I'm not convinced that we've seen the evidence that it was.
OK, let's talk about what you would like to see with all of our energy bills, especially on a day when inflation has ticked up now to 3.6%. The cost of living crisis still very real. We're still feeling it in our pockets. What would you like to do if you had your hands on the levers of power?
Well, we need to cut energy bills. They're one of the biggest problems for so many households and businesses, and it's hitting them with the cost of living crisis you just talked about. It's also holding back the growth of our economy. So it's absolutely fundamental to getting our economy right and to helping people who are struggling out there to get energy bills down. I'm going to make a speech later today to put forward some ideas about how you do that, something that could be done in the next few months and next few years to take more than £200 off the average household bill. But over the next decade, I think we need a plan to cut the average energy bill by at least half. I think that is possible. The problem is, I think this government's messed around, wasted a lot of time. I know it had a really bad inheritance from the Conservatives, but there are ideas out there we're putting for them today which could really work fast to get energy bills down. And I think it's so important for so many families and pensioners out there.
Go on, give us some of those ideas. What would you do if you were in government tomorrow? What would you do to make a quick impact on this and bring those bills down?
Yeah, the first thing is we've got to admit that the old way of subsidising renewables was very expensive. When I was Energy Secretary, Liberal Democrats brought in a new way, which is far more effective and has already saved people some money from the old system. And what we need is to phase out those old ways of subsidising to these new, what we call contracts for difference. They've been copied around the world because they've been so effective. And the UK Energy Research Centre estimated that if you did what we're proposing, you could save the average household £200 a year. So it's those sorts of things. It's a bit technical, I accept that, but if we phase out these old-fashioned ways that were brought in by the new Labour government onto the systems that Liberal Democrats brought in, I think you could save a lot of money for businesses and for people out there.
Yeah, I mean, it is technical, you're right. It's pretty complicated. The price of gas seems to determine the price of electricity, even if it's clean electricity. When you speak to some of the energy companies, some of the biggest suppliers to those of us in households, they're talking about things like zonal pricing. Those people who live closer to the likes of wind turbines pay less for their electricity, and those who live further away may pay a little bit more. They think it will bring the overall cost down for everybody. Do you think that's the right thing?
Well, the government's looked at it and actually rejected it. And I think part of the problem of going down that route is you would undermine investment that we need now. Because one thing the government is doing right, and I'm happy to say that when they're doing things right, is investing in many more renewables. Because if we're going to get rid of the impact that gas prices have on people's energy bills, we've got to have a lot more renewables. So the price of electricity isn't set by gas, as it is now, meaning much higher electricity bills and energy bills overall, but it's set by renewables, which are far, far cheaper. And the key thing here, you hear people like Nigel Farage, don't you, saying, oh, it's terrible, these high energy bills, all through renewables. It's just wrong. If you had his way, you'd basically have the price of gas continuing to set people's energy bills. I know he likes Vladimir Putin, but I don't think Vladimir Putin should be setting the energy bills in our country through world gas prices. I think we should have much cheaper energy, British energy, and that's why Liberal Democrats are coming on here, putting forward real solutions, unlike people like Nigel Farage, who talks about the problems, but with no real solution.
I'm not sure, he's not here to talk about himself, of course. I'm not sure he'd accept that characterisation.
He gets plenty of coverage, don't worry about that.
Just to finish off, we've seen in recent years the building of wind farms offshore has not been worth the investment because the electricity can't be taken to where it's needed. One of the bigger problems, just to finish off, Ed Davey, and Ofgem have been taking a close look at this, is the national grid is not improving fast enough. They're not investing enough, so the clean energy can't get to where it's needed. Isn't that the elephant in the room with all this?
No, you're right, it's a massive problem. And what's really irritating when you look over the last sort of 8-9 years when Conservatives were running energy policy, they made a complete mess of it. And that's why people's energy bills are so high. If they had invested in the grid properly and got that right, we would have already more renewable energy on the system. Gas wouldn't be setting the price of people's electricity and heating bills, and people's bills would already be coming down. So you're right, if we're going to do what we're arguing for, we need to see much more investment in the grid. That can be done. And over the 10-year horizon that we're talking about halving people's bills, it absolutely must be done.
Ed Davey, appreciate your time this morning on Sky News. Thank you very much indeed.